So fuck that stuff this week. Oh, let's talk about cocaine sharks. Have you heard that term or seen it circulating at all?
Cocaine sharks. I believe I've heard of it, but I know Cocaine Bear, of course,
Of
the
course.
movie. But I believe I heard of the cocaine shark. But you're gonna have to outline the details here for me.
So, a strange movie I don't really understand that came out this year, notwithstanding. The term is generally referring to exactly what it sounds like, sharks on cocaine, which is actually a lot more plausible than the name first suggests. Like, Owen, we have no idea how much cocaine flows into the United States through the South and Central America. We know most of it comes by boat and most of it comes by plane, both of which need to pass through the ocean, quite often the Florida Ocean, to reach the United States. Um, Two key ways that cocaine is smuggled. Sometimes it can literally just be dropped into the water, and other times, like they just get boarded and have to dump it. So sometimes it's dropped to be picked up. Sometimes it's dropped because they have no choice. In both cases, there can just be large bales of cocaine floating in the ocean. Last week, I believe 90 pounds of it was found washed up on the Florida coast. $160 million worth was seized in the month of June by the US Coast Guard. And what do marine life do when they find things in the water? They explore, they check it out. If you're a shark and you see some tightly wrapped material made of plastic and you want to check it out, there's really only one way to do it, and that's prod at it with your teeth. And you prod at that plastic with your teeth, and the cocaine hits the water. It's an incredibly soluble drug. So cocaine sharks, very plausible on the surface. It, of course, is Shark Week on Discovery right now. And this term was launched somewhere into the public conscious last week with Discovery announcing cocaine sharks as a premier feature of this year's Shark Week. So two scientists set out with this hypothesis to explore, and this is essentially the premise of the 1 hour special that aired last night. I've got to say, originally we were going to record the podcast 3 hours before this special aired, and I was kind of irked about it. And so it felt like a bit of a reprieve that we get to do it tonight. Having looked into all the feedback from the show, because of course I don't have Discovery, it doesn't seem as though that much new information has been added from the show premiere. So basically, the show had three things. The first was actually diving. The main marine biologist on this, Tom Hurd, who's also a metalhead, by the way, which is awesome hobby as a shark fanatic, went diving and found a hammerhead that did two things that were atypical for hammerheads. One, it didn't flee him, which hammerheads, if I understand right, almost always do. And two,
Wimp.
it was
Absolute wimp shark.
Yeah. They're so weird. I hadn't thought about hammerhead sharks in years till I was watching this video. And two, its head was a little to the side. So that could be an injury, or as he points out in the video Discovery aired that you can find on YouTube, it could be a chemical imbalance. So then, with that in mind, they set out two test scenarios to try and see if they could explore this. They did this in the Keys because, again, a lot of the drug trade does flow through Florida. And like I said, all this cocaine was literally found in the last month or last week. So first, I don't know what order they did it in. I don't think it really matters. They tried to just simulate it with okay, plane flies over, drops bales. Do sharks have a habit of exploring these bales? When something that looks like this drops, how quickly do the sharks respond? So they did some tests for that, and the sharks were pretty responsive. Now, that's kind of normal. If you've ever been in a lake or river, you drop a little something in water, and if you can see the fish, they will quite often swarm. Small fish, big fish, all kind of act the same. And second, this is where this one I think was kind of fun, but less revealing. They didn't want to actually just dose sharks with cocaine to test this. Oh, which, yeah, I guess ethically that kind of makes sense, unfortunately. So they tried to like come up with the closest thing they could and still feel conscionable about it. And so they made like a shark nip is kind of what they referred to it as. And when they gave that to sharks, the effects were very catnippy, except these are hundreds of kilograms sea apex predators, not little hellspawn. Now, they kind of contradict the like feeding frenzy and manic behavior that went on with the sharks because some background for this also is that shark attacks are just generally on the rise over the last few years. The article isn't really making, or the point of this piece is not that like cocaine in the water is causing sharks to get aggressive and that's why shark attacks are up. This isn't Cocaine Bear. But in fact, they're kind of not making that point at all, is where the narrative kind of goes at itself, because they've done some interviews and said, actually, we think cocaine makes sea life lethargic. So I'm not entirely sure what the point of that second experiment was. If they're saying like, no, I think cocaine doesn't. A lot of this study was influenced by one they did on brown trout in 2021 in Europe, where they could observe like a certain percentage of methamphetamine in the water and then put trout in water with that same percentage of methamphetamine and did some control group studies with that group of trout versus another and found some disturbing results that are incredibly plausible. So compared to that, this not as damning, not as revealing. The whole idea is just to raise awareness of chemicals in the water affecting marine biology, even if there aren't a bunch of rabid cocaine addicted sharks who are just biting into every bale they can find and absolutely addicted to the stuff. But if the multi-billion-dollar annual drug trade, which features amounts of cocaine we cannot fathom, is causing the apex predator of the sea to become an addicted, manic, cocaine shark, would you call that stupidly terrible or terribly stupid?
I don't know if I'd call the cocaine shark itself either of those two things. I would call our world and the fact that they are having to deal with the effects of cocaine as stupidly terrible. But the cocaine shark itself as an entity, I find very incredibly fascinating, and I would love to learn more.
Yes. So this was kind of a pilot to push it. It certainly captured public interest, and I really hope there will be more experiments and we can follow it up. But like, stupidly terrible or terribly stupid was made for this stuff, and looking forward to plenty more STorTS in the future. But for now, we can